it's time to warm up. Come on, Danny! What is this, a pancake factory? You're so flat! I know! I've been trying everything. I've tried blowing it up to pitch. I've tried adjusting my reed. I don't know what to do! Hey man, don't worry. Sometimes grime builds up in the tone holes, and all you have to do is take the oboe apart and clean it out. But I don't know how to do that! Yes, I do totally know how to do that. And you clicked on the right video. Self. Hello, Obophiles! In the next few minutes, I'm going to be showing you how to take your top joint apart so that you can clean into the tone holes. I've been having a lot of issues getting the left-hand notes up to pitch, and I have not found a good solution yet, so I'm thinking there might be some gunk buildup in the tone holes, and I'm going to find out. To do so, I will go over the materials that I'll be using. I'm going to use these cotton swabs, which, you know, just get out of the drugstore or something. And while you're there, you can also pick up some isopropyl alcohol, just rubbing alcohol to do the cleaning. You can also get a paper towel or white cloth, just something to really make the keys and screws stick out as you take them apart. You don't want to lose anything. And then of course, to take the oboe apart, I'm going to be using this screwdriver. It's from Husky, and it has a rotating back, which I really like because it fits in your hand nicely. It's not too big. And of course the heads come in the back, and I'll be using the smallest head. And so that fits in with the magnetic little grip there, and you're good to go. So if you want to find any of these materials, I'll leave links in the description. I think, you know, most of the stuff you can figure out where to find. But just in case, it'll be down there. And before we get into it, don't forget to subscribe below if you haven't already, and of course, smash that like button to help other people who might need to know how to take their oboe apart have more success doing so. Alright, so I did just forget to mention one piece of equipment, and that is these pliers. Ideally you would use needle nose pliers, but these are skinny enough to work as well. And this is just to pull the rods out as we unscrew, as we take the keys off. So just a note, and I'll leave that in the description as well. But first, I'm going to take off this main rod right here, down below, because the goal is to take off these 3 keys. So those 3 keys, the B, A, and G keys, all connect in this stack right here that is held together by that one rod. So luckily, pretty easy work. We'll just unscrew this. And when I feel like it's not turning anymore, I will take the pliers and grab that rod and slowly and carefully just pull it out of place. And you can definitely hear the springs working and the keys coming out. Good. So once that's out, I will put the rod somewhere where I won't lose it, and I'll take the, that was like 5 keys, and I'll leave them in order, carefully removing them from the springs. I don't want to unduly bend any of the springs, because that will lead to adjustment problems, and we don't want that. Okay, so the last 2 are the A and the C vent, which just popped out, so that's great. And I'll carefully pull those out. Great. Looks like the corks have seen better days, so it might be time for me to send my oboe in for maintenance actually. But for now, we can do this ourselves. So next thing, I'm going to dilute my isopropyl alcohol, and I just have a cup of water here. And I'm just going to pour it in. It doesn't take much alcohol. A lot of people at the beginning were probably saying, like, don't use alcohol on your wood. You'll dry out the wood. You don't need that much, so I just poured a little bit in. And they're both, new word, miscible, which means they can mix really easily. And then I'll just take my cotton swab, get it wet in the solution, and clean it out. So first one I'm going to clean is the B vent. I'm just going to stick that in there. So a lot of people use saliva to clean this out, just to wet the end of the thing. I do like to use just a little dab. I don't want to soak the cotton swab. Just get a little bit wet, and I'll stick it in there, and hopefully some grime will come out. And not too much. Okay, so that one was pretty clean. Let's see about the C. So a lot of grime in that one. So just a lot of dirt. Can you focus on that? All right. So just a lot of dirt, and we will go on to the next one. I'm actually going to spend a little bit more time on that one until it comes out a little clear. I might use the back of it as well. Just trying to clean that out and get all that dirt and grime that I blew into it earlier. So, yeah, so it's still coming out a little bit. Good, so we'll go to the next one and hopefully find the source of my troubles. It's pretty dirty. Yeah, so just a lot of like junk, and I don't really know where it comes from. I used to think that was just the wood, but it's not. It's like trash and like decomposing material. So that one's kind of spent. I'm going to use a new swab and just get a little bit of it wet in the solution here. I can feel with my fingers to make sure it's not too wet. You don't want to soak the wood in the alcohol and water solution. You just want it to be like wet enough to collect up the dirt. And yeah, all right, so that feels pretty clean to me. And the A, and then we're going to try the B flat. And plenty comes out. It's so full of trash. Okay. So yeah, it's not surprising, like if you think about it, but it is a little shocking the first time to realize that after you've been practicing for a while, that you've been blowing, you know, maybe some lunch into the oboe, or maybe if you were outside, some dust blew into it. All kinds of stuff gets stuck in there. And at a certain point, we just need to clean it out because it can make the... Oh, yeah. Maybe that was where my issues were. That's so much filth. Okay, I'm going to use another cotton swab just for the G. And we're going to see if we can get all of the dirt and junk out of there. If you can see visually... I don't know if you can focus on that.
Yeah.
But if you can see visually, it already looks a lot cleaner in comparison. So we're just going to take one more swab and see if we can really get all of the dirt out of that tone hole. And obviously, like, if you send this into the shop, hopefully your professional repair person will clean it out also, and they might do a much more thorough job with more specialized tools. Because one of the risks if you do get like a stray cotton bit in there is, you know, it gets stuck in there, and that's not good also. So just be careful. And that looks a lot cleaner to me. So now I'm going to put the keys back on. Luckily, we just had to remove that one stack, so it should be pretty easy. Now, you'll notice that this cork looks a lot more fresh than this cork, for example. So I am thinking it might be time for me to send this oboe in to get it professionally looked at, and maybe the corks need to be replaced. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not like a technician. But that looks really different to me, and I have been feeling a little bit of leaks that I've had trouble with, and that might be why. But you know, as we discover these things, we can find solutions, and hopefully this quarantine won't last that much longer, and we can send the oboe in. All right, so the keys came off from the top to the bottom, and they have to go on in the reverse order. So this isn't absolutely necessary, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it here. This is a little bit like a bonus step. I'm actually gonna clean the rod of the oil. And a bunch of dirt can get in the rod, and I just want it to be clean. So I just clean it off onto the towel. And now I'm going to use a little bit of oil to re-oil the rod. So oil comes in a couple different ways. You can use this key oil, which is just from like any music store. Or you can get yourself like a fancy bottle to put it in. And the thing that makes the bottle fancy is just this needle nose at the top of it, which allows you to put a little bit of oil without spilling it everywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and use like the fancier one because I went through the trouble of having it. Okay, so if you put your keys and rod in good location, then you know what order they go in. The G, of course, goes first, and I will put that one in first. Now, if you put the springs on as you put the keys on, you will save some time and headache. But if you don't, it's not a big deal. You can put them on afterwards with a spring hook or even just with your screwdriver. But I'm going to try to get it on the first try so that it's just working right away. I'm going to stick that screw in there through the A flat key and through the G key. And once I have a little bit of a grab, I'm going to put some oil on the rod. Okay, so now that we have the rod oiled, I'm just going to slide it up and down through the G key a couple times. And as I add the keys, I'll repeat the process. I'm going to try to get the spring on the key as I put it on. And that's correct. Okay. And then I'll just with my fingers, just push the rod through the rest of the way. And once it gets through, I'll add a little bit more oil. Push it through a little bit more, and just make sure all the keys are going through. Now you see, like, when I turn the rod, the G key catches. So I don't like that. So I'm going to pull it back out a little bit and add a little bit more oil. Great. And once I've added oil, the G key, well, it just catches a little bit there. Okay, so that's not good. Let's try one more time. There we go. Alright, so as I've added more oil, the G key no longer catches as I turn the rod. So that's good. We want the whole system to be really well lubricated. And yeah, that'll make your technique feel a lot better. Alright, so I'm going to push through again. And as the rod goes through more, it might get caught on different things as the different forces push on it. But we will keep adding keys as we go, and hopefully the rod will still be true. So now next key is the A key. And we'll just line that up. Now the A key has a little bit of a lip here, and it's important that the lip goes underneath this bridge key for the A flat. So just make sure that it gets underneath, because if you don't remember to do that, you have to take the whole thing off again. So just make sure you do that on the way in. Great. And then same thing, I just want to make sure that it's really well lubricated. And then I will put on the C key, or it's not the C key, I guess, it's the key that covers the C vent, which I guess would be the C key. Now this one, the spring is really far away, so it's going to be really hard to hook on. So I will put it in place, and then I will use my screwdriver to just push that screw into place. And you might not be able to see it, but if you can you see that? Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome. I'm just getting in there and pushing the screw into place. And when it's in place, it'll push a little bit, so just make sure you hold it with your thumb or whatever finger you're using to hold the key into place. And once you get the rod into the right place, you can push it on the end with the screwdriver. Just make sure you're careful. Oh. There we go. Now, if all the keys are lined up, they should go in no problem. And you can, just don't force anything. Be really conscientious of how much force you're using. And as you turn the screw, notice now none of the keys are closing. So that's great. We got plenty of oil in there. Everything is nice and lubed up. The last key to go on is, of course, the B key. And hopefully this one is easier to get with the spring. But if it's not, no big deal. We'll just do the same thing we did before and use the screwdriver to press that spring into place. So I'm just going to hold the key in place with my left hand, and with my right hand I'm going to push the spring right into its slot. There we go. But you can tell that the spring is no longer out of place. It's definitely under the key now. Right? Okay, so now that that's in, I'm still holding the key in place, and I'm going to push. I could do it with my hand, I suppose. I'm going to push the rod right into its socket, into its little screw-in socket. And I don't know why, I just like doing it with the screwdriver. I don't know if it's actually easier, or if maybe it's just my head. And right now it's not being easier, so let's get that into place. There we go. Okay. Alright. Okay, and whenever they're all lined up, the rod suddenly like flies into place. So just be careful not to use too much force, or you could end up, stabbing the oboe or even your hand with a screwdriver, which you do not want. All right, so whenever the screw's a little bit out still, I'll do one more squeeze of oil on all the joints and the end. Once you've oiled the joints and the end of the rod, you can screw it in the rest of the way. And as you're screwing it in, just be careful to notice if any of the keys are getting stuck, and in this case they are not, which is great. So I actually will tighten it all the way and then just barely unscrew it like a 1/16 of a turn. So just so it's not quite all the way too tight. And that feels really good to me. You can kind of press the keys and you want them to take no force whatsoever. Hopefully now, when I play the oboe again, I won't have to use any force on the keys at all, and the tone holes are clear, so I should have no problem blowing the left-hand notes up to pitch, which should be right in slot anyway when the oboe was made. So once the tone holes have been cleaned out, you can put your oboe back together and give it a test run. If something doesn't work, it's not a big deal. You might have to adjust the adjustments. Right? You might have to just tweak the adjustments because as you take it apart, you might have accidentally knocked a spring or a screw might have gotten turned in a minor way. So don't freak out if it doesn't work at that point. But let's give it a try. Alright, so it definitely feels a lot more free-blowing to me. I'll have to play it more in context to get used to it again because it does feel different. But I definitely am not struggling to blow those notes up as much. Especially the B, it sounds like it's really popping out at me now. Alright, well, that was a fun little adventure we just went on, and I hope that if you are intimidating by taking your oboe apart, that you're not now. You think it's super approachable, and if not, you can always get your teacher or a repair person to help you do it. Not a big deal. Not everyone is bold enough to take apart their oboe, and I understand it can be pretty scary. But what's not scary is smashing that like button below and hitting subscribe. As always, when in doubt, play beautifully.